Hi, my name is Natércia and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about my current reads. So grab your cup of tea or orange juice or water, whatever it is that you like to drink, and let's get into it. So I don't usually read several books at the same time, but recently I've been in this mood where it just feels like no matter what I read, it just never quite hits the spot. And so I decided to read several things at the same time and just see how it goes. And I've quite liked it. It has felt like, when like sometimes you get home from school or work and, hey, it's my cat. When like sometimes you get home from school or work and you feel like watching a drama, but other days you want to watch something that's like, this is him. But other times you feel like watching something that's a little lighter. That's kind of how I've been feeling. For example, if I'm reading something that's like really exciting at nighttime, or something that I'm like super drawn to, I'm not gonna sleep. Like, I'm gonna be up really late reading, and your girl already has insomnia, so that's just not the vibe, you feel me? And so I've been trying to like dabble into different genres, and I realized that at least right now at this point of my life, for me, what works best is to have like an array of different pieces at my disposal that I can enjoy at different times. So that's why I have several books that I'm reading, or the main text that I've been trying to work on getting through since the beginning of the year has been Les Misérables by Victor Hugo. I literally started this year, like in January I think it was, and I'm still not done. And it's not because it's not a good book. I think it's more so just the fact that sometimes I just wasn't in the mood for this. Part of the reason, I think, it's because the way Victor Hugo wrote this was so that the narrator is kind of a little bit impersonal. It feels like a story that someone is telling you. Like, you could be sat, I don't know, like at the fireplace, and someone is telling you the story, right? Like, this man walked across, and as he walked across, this is what he was wearing, etc. So it's more like you're just like observing the action take place. Though he does definitely also cover what these characters are feeling. So it's really good, but I feel like that kind of type of narration made it a little harder for me to feel as invested the whole way through. So it was something that I wanted to read, and I'm almost done. I'm almost done. I have like a tiny little bit left to go, but I just felt that sometimes, I just wasn't that excited to see what was going to happen to the characters next. The other thing, also, big disclaimer, is that this is the abridged version of Les Misérables. So a lot of really big and important parts of his work have been omitted. I noticed that this abridged version in particular pretty much just skips over the whole relationship between Jean Valjean and Javert, which I would have guessed is quite important. Again, I haven't read it, so I don't know, but based on the musical and just like other pieces commenting on the book from other people, it seemed like that relationship is quite important, and it also feels like the character of Javert, I just find him so intriguing, especially because from what I've heard, he has this white and black mentality, and growing up, I've worked really hard on not having that mentality anymore, but growing up, that's kind of what I was like. And so the fact that eventually his story culminates on his death, I don't know, I just feel like that was something that I hope to explore. I do not regret reading the abridged version. In fact, I will advise anyone wanting to get into Victor Hugo to start with the abridged version, just because I've heard that the original work has a lot of like description and just a lot of things that for a 21st century audience might seem a little bit redundant or boring. And so I think it's best to at least read something of his work than not read anything at all. I do feel, however, very excited to get into the whole thing eventually. This time around, I'm reading this in the original language. I think next time I want to read the whole thing in English, and then I think I'll read the whole thing in French. Um, so that's my tip. I found that this book, Les Misérables, was extremely accessible. Like the language was very accessible. Not for me. I was reading in French, so that was a little harder. I like every now and then I had to look up words and expressions, and I also think that's part of the reason why it took me so long to finish this. And again, I'm not finished yet, but I think I'll be done in the next couple days, which is really exciting. For the most part, I felt like the reading was quite accessible. So again, if you have ever wanted to read Les Misérables, I would definitely say go for the rich version and just like, you know, like get a feel for it. It's very accessible reading, but at the same time, I think the beauty of this work is that it's so impregnated with so much philosophical thought. This is really truly a think piece. Victor Hugo definitely is trying to make commentary on class, on poverty, on the role of the government, on the position of women. He tries to abark so much just with this one piece, and I think he's really successful with it. This book definitely made me think a lot. Something that I found very powerful about this book is how it deals with religion, which I thought was very interesting because in this book, it feels that religion and faith in God are a very positive thing. However, it would appear that in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, that also belongs to him, religion has more of a negative connotation. So I'd be very interested to read both of these works and compare them. My guess is that in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, he actually is really probably critiquing more like organized religion or the Catholic Church at the time. But that's been making me think a lot because I am myself a Christian, and I think that oftentimes as Christians we fail to really live up to our principles and values. And so there's this duality of like, you know, religion being a really positive thing and religion sadly also being a tool for evil, that's used for evil. I loved the bishop. I honestly like felt so moved by the bishop, and I think there's a lot more on the bishop in the original work than the abridged work version that I'm reading. But I just felt like he was so full of goodness, and I believe that there are people like that out there. And so it just made me feel like, well, like this is the kind of Christian that I want to be. And even if you're not Christian, I think that you could read that and be like, this is the kind of person that I want to be. The beginning of the book honestly like broke my heart because, and without giving spoilers, if you've seen the movie, you probably already know this, but basically Jean Valjean has been working, doing like manual labor as a punishment for stealing bread to feed his sister's family. And so this has been happening over decades. And so at the very beginning, when we're first introduced to him, he's this person who's completely broken, and he turns against society and holds society in contempt. And the whole, honestly, just read it, it's amazing. But the whole way in which Hugo writes about society as being this shadow over Jean Valjean, it's so good, and it's so immersive. And then you get to the point where you're like, I mean, can't blame him, you know, like he's been violated in every way, he's been hurt so much for doing absolutely nothing, and you really feel this pain for him, and you really feel like you wanna, almost like there's no coming back, you know, there's no coming back from that place of pain. And suffering and darkness that he's been forced onto. I feel emotional thinking about this because I was so touched reading this, but he gets to this town and he's basically begging anyone to give him a place to sleep, right? Like he even goes to the prison to try and get a place to sleep, and absolutely everyone turns him away. And eventually he gets to the bishop's home and he welcomes him in, but he doesn't just welcome him in, he treats him amazing. He brings out the best cutlery they have. They treat him like a king. Again, if you've seen the musical, this is not a spoiler if you haven't, skip ahead, but Jean Valjean ends up stealing from the bishop and he gets caught by the police. And when he's brought back to the bishop's like, oh no, yeah, I give all those things to him. And that was the moment where like all this darkness and all this contempt against society that Jean Valjean was feeling, it starts to unravel. Like he cannot understand how someone can grant him such grace for doing something evil. And that's the beginning of Jean Valjean's change and journey. I think one of the most touching aspects of this book is the fact that one good deed, one display of grace can have such great ramifications and repercussions. Because the bishop was so kind to him, Jean Valjean went ahead and he just completely changed his life. He became mayor, and as the mayor, he was a great leader for the people. He goes and helps Cosette. It's all because of this one act of just sincere and true kindness. I definitely think that the most important part of the book is the characters. There are some things that definitely stand out to me. The language, just the prose, the lyricism of the work, the way in which Victor Hugo is able to critique society or have these really deep philosophical thoughts that he expounds throughout the piece in a way that feels very light. It doesn't feel like an essay. I think that's incredible. But also just the way that he uses his characters to convey messages. For example, something that I haven't really heard anyone talk about is the parallels between the bishop, Jean Valjean, and Gavroche. So Gavroche is a tiny little guy. He's someone we meet later on. He's very poor. He's so poor he's destitute. Right? He lives on the street. His family kind of got rid of him. They couldn't feed him and they just didn't care. But Gavroche, probably my favorite character, he, instead of having this scarcity mindset of I'm on the street, I have no resources, he sees two other young boys and goes out of his way to feed them, to give them a place to sleep, to give them a home, to teach them the ways of the street. He basically becomes their leader, and he teaches them all these cool things that he knows. And I remember just writing here, where is it? I remember writing here how like he had no scarcity mindset in a society where even the rich, or especially the rich, would withhold all of their goods and abstain from sharing with the poor. And the poor themselves also, with the really decent excuse of not having enough, they will also withhold their goods from sharing with others and wouldn't share with others. And Gavroche is not like that at all. He's just a natural leader. He has so much to give. And I was just so impressed because I felt like that was a parallel between the bishop, Jean Valjean, and Gavroche. All three of these characters show a level of empathy and courage in the face of adversity, and instead of looking inwards, they look outwards, no matter how difficult their circumstances are. So that was something that I was super impressed with. That's kind of what I had to share about Les Misérables. I've loved it so far. I'm almost done with it. Yeah. The other book that I've been reading is Why Time Flies, a mostly scientific investigation by Alan Burdock. And I do have to say, the prose, that just the way this book is written is beautiful. But I'm not gonna finish it. Okay, so I actually checked this out from the library, and I was very interested in learning about time from a like scientific. I wanted to learn about the physics of time, and I hoped this book will be it. But it's actually nothing to do with physics, really. It's more kind of a very long and beautiful thought on the connection that us humans have to time, the philosophy of time. It's a very interesting read. It just wasn't where I was going for, but again, it's really beautiful. The way this was worded is just beautiful. It's a very intimate read. Like, I felt like I really bonded with the author. Like, he just really makes you feel like you're there with him. He talks to you as a friend almost. I don't know, it's again really good book. It just wasn't what I was looking for, so I've been trying to get through it, but it just doesn't hit the spot for me, if you know what I mean. So I won't be reading it. I won't be finishing it, at least not right now. I might in the future, but again, if you're interested in like time, this might be a good book to read. Next thing I'm reading, and I just started it, is this poetry collection by Hayley Grace called Save Me an Orange. And again, I just started it, so I don't have a ton to say, but I will say this. I felt very touched by the very first poem, the introduction. The way the poetry in this collection is composed is very disjointed, and it feels like a stream of consciousness, kind of like I'm writing as I think. But I feel like that's the beauty of it. The dedicatory says, to anyone who thought the world will end at 16. So I don't want to spoil anything, but hopefully that gives you an idea of more or less what this collection is about. So the fact that, you know, we're dealing with topics that are kind of heavy and feelings that are dark and not pretty, it makes sense that it isn't all rhymy and cute. But I think it's also a collection about hope. I don't want to like give too much away because I really do think this is a good collection, but basically oranges, I'm gonna give you a little bit of, again, this is just introduction, so I'm just to give you an idea. Basically, this is a young girl who clearly has been struggling with depression and just like perhaps even suicidal ideation. She's not happy. Well, clearly she's thinking about suicide. But then she talks about how, you know, like her mom offers her an orange, and then she feels a little bit better, and then her sister offers her another orange, and so she's like, you know, maybe I'll give it one more day. And so it's about I think it's about the beauty and the magic and the power of oranges, not just the fruit, but rather the little acts of kindness and connection, like human connection, and how those become oranges in our lives and things that keep us moving forward. I've just started part 1. There's 3 parts: the roots, the spoiled fruit, and oranges. And I'm really excited to get through all of this. So I just started part 1, the roots. And this part kind of sets up why life has been so hard for her and why life is so hard for her. And it has to do with abuse and maybe being bullied and maybe not having a good father. And the very first poem on that section, I found it quite powerful. I have an amazing dad, but the reality is that a lot of people, a lot of women don't have that. So I just found this. I don't know how the words, so I'm just gonna read it to you. The boys bullied me at school. I'd get off the bus in tears, making fun of the things I could not change. I'd run home to my father. They tease you because they like you. He'd reply, I guess my father was the bully too. So again, ooh, really, I'm excited to get through this. The only thing I would say is that as you do, you know, when you're starting to read something, you like to do a little research on the author. And I found some people are very happy because apparently this author publishes reels where she's reading the work of other poets and doesn't clarify that that work isn't hers. So basically that's plagiarism, right? And so like it appears like it's her work, so a lot of people have felt deceived, and that frankly doesn't sit right with me. But you know, this was a gift and I want to get through it. But it just made me really think on, again, cancel culture and, you know, like how I feel about indulging in the work of someone who perhaps, you know, isn't very ethical. So I'd be super interested on hearing your thoughts. Like, is this something that you will read? How do you feel about it? So yeah. And the last book that I've been reading has been The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. I love this book. I had to read it for a class, and it's sociology work. So it's not like, ooh, I have a podcast and like this is how you make things work. No, this is like based on actual real research by Dr. Gottam and his wife, I believe. I read it and I just felt like I wanted to like kind of remember some of the things they talked about because I forgot about them. So I just picked a chapter and I went back to that chapter. I think this is a book that anyone will benefit from. I'm not married myself, but I find that a lot of the principles in this book and the things that are discussed, if not most of them, are things that anyone should put in practice because we'll have brothers or sisters or parents or, you know, and so these are things that I'm trying to put in practice in my personal relationships. And also, you don't have to be married. You can be in a like serious relationship and like benefit from this. I will definitely recommend this to honestly anyone. Yes, this is my first book video for YouTube. I hope you guys liked it. I know that I did enjoy talking about books. I've been having all these ideas in my mind and I'm like, I have to share them with someone. So hopefully someone out there says this. Thank you for being here. Let me know in the comments if you will read the poetry collection, if you found out that the author, you know, has been doing some dodgy stuff. See you in the next video. Bye.